Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is El-Hawary, and I'm here to explain this title behind me. The non-operationalizable tragedy. Now, besides being grammatically inaccurate, this title is quite a mouthful, so let me start by breaking it down a bit. In the social sciences, operationalization is a term given to the process of turning abstract concepts into concrete and measurable variables that could be quantified and compared. So an abstract concept like religiousness would be operationalized as how many times someone prays per day or how many times they read religious scripture. Those times would be quantified, then put on a scale that measures people from most religious to least religious. Operationalization is a technique that almost always works and gives pretty accurate results about the concept under study. So having read and studied about multiple socially scientific studies, I'm always thinking about how various concepts could be operationalized, measured, and compared. And I find so much joy in coming up with the most creative ways to operationalize all different concepts. And I thought that any concept could be operationalized, but then my friend's cat died, and I remember that day very vividly because later that day, after I found out, I was out with yet another friend who doesn't know the friend whose cat died, and I was talking about how I really need to text my friend my condolences, but I just didn't know what to say because, God, it was so tragic. And the friend whom I'm with replies, "Maya, can you stop being dramatic? Like, honestly, people's parents and friends die every day. This is merely an animal. Besides, how long could he have possibly had it anyways?" And before I could even reply, I realized that what she had done is that she had operationalized my friend's relationship with his cat as the type of creature that they both are, or the number of years they might have spent together, then made an objective decision that his tragedy wasn't really that big of a deal. And that's when it struck me that tragedy and struggle could not be quantified. They could not be put on a scale, and they for sure cannot be operationalized. There are so many factors that could lead different people to experience tragedy differently. Even if it's the same tragedy, some people might have a very harsh experience with a seemingly simple tragedy, while others glide smoothly through a supposedly much harsher one. Everything has an effect, from varying tolerance levels to the different ways people experience and process human emotions, to coping mechanisms, varying circumstances, to even how vocal someone is about their struggle. And swirling that around in my head brought me to the conclusion that if we all experience, process, and tolerate tragedy differently, then it follows that every tragedy is valid in its own right. That it's beyond our non-omniscient selves to compare people's pains and decide which of them matters and which doesn't. Now, it's true that at this point, I have offered you an explanation as to why tragedy is non-operationalizable, but what I am yet to walk you through is why we shouldn't operationalize tragedy. What could possibly be the consequences of comparing people's pains and putting them on a scale? Well, the most obvious and the most critical one is that it invalidates some people's pain. It invalidates their struggle. It deems it too easy or too insignificant to be talked about, ultimately acting as a silencing mechanism. Well, not to delve too much into politics, but back in my country, in Egypt, whenever people complain about the rising inflation and the prices that don't stop shooting up, and the standards of living that are being dragged down, government supporters immediately retaliate by saying that they should not complain. They should instead be grateful that despite everything, at least the country is in a better state than Syria or Iraq. If you're Egyptian, you've heard that statement so many times. The operation sensationalize poor people's struggle, put it on a scale, and paint them out as ungrateful to silence their complaints. The inability to even complain about their struggle leads so many people there to fall an easy prey to depression and various other related mental illnesses. A lot of them finally resorting to suicide as a way out. This might sound a bit too extreme to you, but let me tell you this. According to the Egyptian Journal of Forensic Science, suicide rates in Egypt rose by 41.88% from 2005 to 2017, and they are still on the rise. The said journal also states that a large percentage of those who commit suicide annually do so because they believe that their struggle would be shunned down by either society or even their immediate family if spoken about openly. This example may be a lot more on the macro side of things, but it could very easily be reflective of our everyday lives. Take a student who complains to their friend about their workload and how much it's affecting their sanity, making them lose sleep at night, literally stopping them from going through the course of their life normally. Their friends immediately reply, "We all have that much work, we even have more. So honestly, just stop complaining, suck it up, and do the work." That friend is unlikely to ever confide in his friends again. He will continue to carry the weight of his struggle solo, which would definitely have an adverse effect on their mental health, and could even lead them to feel too small or weak or insignificant for struggling through something that seems to be no more than a piece of cake to their other friends. So far, I have told you that operationalizing tragedy is a problem, explained why that is, and told you a bit about its possible grave consequences. But what I am yet to tell you is the solution to that problem. It is a solution that is so simple to articulate, yet so difficult to apply. I can in fact give it to you in one word: empathy. Listen. Listen to those you care about and even those you don't, when they choose to talk to you and confide in you about their problems. Listen no matter how insignificant their problem may seem. Listen without constantly telling them that other people have it worse, or that you have it worse. Listen without making them feel small or weak or insignificant. Listen without invalidating their struggle. Please just listen. Empathetically and patiently and attentively, and for as long as they may want to speak, because let me tell you this, when someone chooses to confide in you about the struggle that they're going through, the last thing they need to hear from you is how small or invalid it is. The last thing they need for you to do is to operationalize their tragedy, place it on a scale, and finally decide that it's not tragic enough, that it's not worth complaining about, or that they should stop being whiny. When someone complains to you, please don't start going on about how you're going through so much worse, or how you've had to live through much more tragic things. "Oh, you have a broken leg? Well, I once broke both my legs, so honestly, just be grateful." No, just no. Maybe the seemingly milder tragedy has much more effect on them than the supposedly harsher tragedy had on you. When someone complains to you, you listen. And after you listen, you help. Or try to help them get help. Try to make them feel better. Tell them that they're strong, that they can pull through this, and that it gets better, that they can handle anything life throws their way. Be mindful that if they chose you out of everyone to confide in you, or if they had even chose you and everyone to confide in you, then it must be for a reason. Honor that and give them the attention and the support that they need. You cannot imagine how much of an impact that has on someone who's going through tragedy. It honestly makes a whole lot of difference. So please, the next time someone confides in you, complains to you, or even whines to you. Don't operationalize their tragedy. Don't put it on a scale and don't deem it insignificant. Just remember, empathy. Thank you very much.